Hi, I'm Colin.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Drew.
We're the Gamesmiths, and we just got done playing Last Bottle of Rum. I think overall we really had a fun time tonight. We liked your design. We liked the tiles, the presentation. It was really easy to set up, and especially with your picture diagram of what the board is. I loved that setup. I knew exactly where to put things as I was reading through. I understood what the cards were. I didn't know exactly what they were going to do, but I liked how you only had one copy of each treasure card and one copy of each, well, not of each treasure card, but you had enough for both of the decks to be completely equal, all the islands, so it was kind of like trying to get around the map, and you really have to utilize the entire map, and I like that you have to go around. Mm-hmm. That was really fun, especially since we got to explore the entire board. Made for interesting dynamics. You could either attack or not. I think the beginning... it's a little harder to get started. If you don't have a movement card, there's really only one thing you can do is collect resources. We really appreciated your explanation, your little letter to us saying that this is your second language, and you spent so much time on this, we can tell, right. The 8 months. Yeah. And having been through a 17th version, so we know you're probably going to make some changes. So we'll just go through with you what we think could make your game a little better.
Yeah, and it helped us. I think it helped us with that letter to let us know to where you guys were at mentally with the game, and saying like, we understand that all the core mechanics are there, but there still needs some fine tuning. So we know that that's where you're. That helps us with our feedback too, I think.
Yeah. And one thing that I liked best was what artwork you do have so far is really awesome. It's really like cute and fun.
Enchanting. You feel like you're in this world.
Yeah, like there was, my character, the squid, was kind of a rough outline, but I would love to see it once it's, fully colored and finished and everything. One of the cards had like the voodoo doll on it. I would be so excited to see like how you do the rest of the artwork for those cards. I think it's really fun, like, definitely fits with the pirate theme, but isn't anything too like crazy or out there, right. So
yeah. It's fun cartoony pirate theme and everything like that. I thought the mechanics were really good too. I thought that, exploring, being able to see the ocean in front of you and sail and explore, combining with the spyglass cards and moving around, it was easy enough to reveal the whole map, and like you felt that there was stuff to explore and corners of the world to explore, but it also didn't feel tedious in like, you just kind of have to go to every square one by one by one by one.
There was always something new in spaces that you had already thought you'd discovered. It's like the shifting seas. There's always a new horizon.
Yeah,
it felt like.
Yeah, and I think like Colin was saying earlier, the treasure mechanic and the map mechanic, I think that was very cool. I think that's a good way of randomizing everything.
Especially because the board's randomized every time too,
right.
So it's going to be a different game every time.
Right. I think you've done. I think you've done a very good job of doing that without getting too. Without it being too tedious, without it being too much work for the players setting stuff up. A lot of times in games where they go for a lot of variance, there's like a big list, or you got to pull like a bunch of different number of things. Like, if you're playing something like Legendary or a deck building game, a lot of times they'll have variety by you've got to pull 20 or 30 different stacks of cards together, and the different combinations are how you do variety, and so it makes the setup really long. This one, you set it up the same way every time. You just put all your tiles face down, shuffle up the deck real quick, peel the 3 cards off the top, and now you have different treasures on different islands in different locations every time. And I think that's really cool. Overall, the ideas of the different powers and the different things that you can do.
Yeah.
I felt they were all pretty relevant.
Yeah. Relevant and pretty powerful. Chelsea's power was pretty
The
brutal.
one
Yeah, they were all
card
very
at a
unique. All the
playing more than one.
That's what
card
I liked,
turn.
how they all played different. I liked how I could kind of chain mine or kind of combo off and play a multiple number of cards. We don't know if that's how you're supposed to be played, but that's how we played it. I liked it, especially when Chelsea was playing, so you could only play one card. So it's like, well, maybe I can actually play 3. So it kind of balanced that out. I thought that was fair, but it was also kind of like, oh, you get to actually have a character and an identity, and that's really fun.
Between videos, Wolf and Ryan and I did actually switch because I saw the shark. You know, it didn't actually have the shark on it. I saw the words on the shark sheet, and I was like, that sounds like the gameplay style for me. I want to be the aggro. Ryan can get the controlling character. You know, stealing cards from people's hands and playing them. That sounds fun, but.
Right,
you know, I would rather just shoot people, you know, lob cannons at them from across the sea. So I felt like it was a personality test.
Yeah, I think the one thing about the design, like overall, well, the main thing that I wanted to mention is the game is called The Last Bottle of Rum, and so before playing it, I did expect bottles of rum to be involved.
I did too. I figured that's probably what the barrels were.
Yeah,
Right.
but bottles versus barrels, like, I'm not really sure.
Well, there's the last one, so you can only have one.
Yeah.
Like there should
Right.
just be one as like the trophy or the.
Yeah.
I could see. Yeah, I could
see that
see.
being,
I get what you're saying, because this isn't really a game about
Getting
the
rum
last
and
bottle,
drinking anything or
the last bottle of rum seems more like we'd be fighting over one thing, like more of kind of like a hot potato kind of thing like that, and like that you want to have it. Like we'd all be going over like and then whoever has the last bottle of rum at the end of the game is the winner, and it changes hands a bunch of times every round.
Yeah.
This is more of a treasure exploration. Like the last bottle of rum is your prize, but the last bottle of rum doesn't necessarily communicate with what you're doing in the game. It's not like treasure hunt, or like, because I think like treasure hunt would be it's a boring title, and I wouldn't use that as the title, but it would be a more accurate title to what you're doing.
Treasure
here.
Island.
Right, like that's what you're, or exploring the high seas, or plundering the high seas, or something like that. Like I think you have a.
We already played a game called
I'd
Plunder. I
agree
wouldn't
that.
recommend that one.
Right. I'd agree that you're. I'd agree that you're.
There's
So-
a lot of room for a cool title because you read a lot about people digging up buried treasure, but so few stories actually involve the burying of it.
True.
So I thought that was kind of interesting when I first heard it in the game.
Yeah. And so, but that brings, so another one of the things that, along those lines are, I know you're not native English speakers, so we're not going to nitpick on your English, but there are a couple things that we wanted to point out. Number one, you use the term turn for both a full, like everybody goes, like in your rules it says, everybody is in the turn, everybody takes one turn, and then that's a turn. I would use the term rounds instead. So your game lasts for 10 rounds, and a round is everybody takes a turn. So I take a turn, Chelsea, Colin, Drew, that's round 1, and then round 2. So I would just use that term. Use rounds instead of turns, and that's just going to help you.
For the larger.
And yes. And so as you're getting that play tested, and if you have more people like us start play testing it, that's going to be something that'll help right away. That you should clarify that right away. People can get around poor, wrong word choices for English, but sometimes they're confusing, and that one's particularly confusing. The other one I would recommend is use the gender neutral pronoun they. So you can steal a card from a player on their turn instead of saying you steal a card from a player on his turn. So when you can use they and their turn instead of his and her turn, or he and his, use they and their. And that is some little nitpicky stuff. You mentioned in your letter you understand that you have some balancing to do with some of the mechanics. I would say that the Chelsea's mechanic, I think, was a little bit. I think it should have cost her at least one barrel. I think it was a little much to do for free.
Yeah, only play one card. That was devastating.
Yeah.
I could only use it when I had the.
Well, so could anybody. But it was just like you didn't have to think about using it. Whereas, like, when I had one of that energy, I decide, do I actually want to use
Right.
this? Whereas you're just like, well, of course, it's free. You know, just like, if I get this bolt anyways, then yeah, if I happen to play a card with a bolt on it, then these guys just lose a card on their turn.
But at the same time, you automatically got one barrel.
Oh, no,
resource
it's
every
true.
turn,
It's true.
so
That's
you
why I would say I would
did have
only
more.
make yours cost one, if
Yeah, yeah.
anything. Just so you had to think about it. It wasn't even a choice for you, and I think it's a little more interesting if it's a choice. And then with Collins, I wouldn't allow it to target the same card more than once in a turn. So if you can use it, I wouldn't,
Because that just makes turns go longer, and the more choices you have, the more complicated your turn is, and everyone
Right.
kind of gets restless. Because I think a couple of my turns was like, oh shoot, now that this changes everything, so let me reanalyze. Where do I want to go?
Right.
Do I want to pick up a treasure? Am I close now? How many moves do I have? I'm picking up barrels. I'm getting a bunch of resources, and I'm like, well, now I have all these options, and it was fun, but
Yeah.
not for them.
Right.
Or
Or make it cost something. Or make it cost
Yeah.
one for him as well. Being able to use that.
Use it for free. I was a little
Yeah.
much. I was piling up on resources. Then people were going against me. Another thing that Chelsea and I experienced in the game was we got hit with the Kraken, and it was like super feel bad to lose so many points. Especially Chelsea lost 3, then I lost 2, and it's like, oh man, I already
lost
got my
4 overall.
stuff stolen,
Yeah.
and now I feel like I don't know that I can even win anymore. Like I see these other guys already have like 20 plus points, and I'm like, I have 2 things. One of my best ones got stolen. Although I did like the Kraken being able to get stolen, and because you want to have it out, so I like the risk in that. Don't get me wrong, but the Kraken making you lose points that you may not even have, like Chelsea turn 1. Not even having any points is like, oof.
Yeah.
I would get. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say the other thing about the Kraken is we were a little confused whether if you're on the center island, are you safe from the Kraken? Because, if that wasn't the case, then I wouldn't have taken quite as much damage as I did.
Yeah.
Because once you guys got enough cards, you pretty much just stayed on that island to stay
Well,
safe.
then it seems
so.
like it would have hit all of us, not just one of us. And
Yeah.
then does the effect happen for
Yeah.
everybody in that case?
And
Why
I
does
think
it
it's
just happen to the
interesting.
one?
Yeah, I think it's interesting either way. I think giving
Yeah.
the option of everybody running back to Safety Island when they know the Kraken's going to attack adds a level to the gameplay. But if it's not what you intended, then fine, just specify.
Just needs to be
And
clarified,
Yeah, and
I think.
any of those things. I mean, you saw the conversations that we had throughout the gameplay video of, well, we're confused. But there were a few times, I honestly don't even remember them all right now. There are a few times that we stopped the game and had to have a conversation about what we want to do about the card. Make sure that that's explicitly written on there. And anything that we did wrong that you feel was our fault, write it on there. The one other feedback I'd like to give on the rule book is that the ability where the explanation on how you dig up a treasure based on the map card was in the FAQ section of the instruction booklet, and it was kind of difficult to find. That needs to be front page news, like right with where you explain the anatomy of a card. You never really explain, this is the map, this is what you do, match it. We figured it out, but I'd be a little more explicit on that. And then I would actually recommend not having the Kraken give negative points. I think
It's too feel bad.
yeah, and it doesn't. it doesn't track well with your game. Like the way you have the game set up, people don't really get points until the end of the game, or you don't really tally up your points until the end of the game. You don't have a way to track negative points cleanly. Like we pulled some dice that we had lying around to track with, but just for a lot of reasons, it's kind of clunky. It doesn't jive with the rest of your game. I would have the Kraken just deal damage, roll the die, and have the player can get up to, like on a 1 or a 2, the player takes the top damage card and just takes it. On a 3 or a 4, the person, looks at the top 2 and takes one of them, and then on 5 or a 6, the person takes the top 2 and takes both of them. Just have it do damage, because then that's something you can mitigate throughout the game.
Yeah, you still
That's
lose the
something-
resources because
you
that
still
still
lose the
hurts, but
resources,
To
that's
lose
fine.
resources and like points at the end of the game. It's like,
Yeah.
like what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, to almost be permanently put off losing. And then the other thing that I
Yeah.
think that we all agree on is the game is a little too long, and not so much in minutes played, but
Rounds played.
in rounds, because we all, at the end of the game, if Chelsea had gotten damaged right at the end of the game that made her lose one of your treasures, at the end of the game, all of us would have had 4 treasures. And I think you want to time this game out to where getting 4 treasures is doing really, really well, and maybe 1, maybe 2 people can get 4 treasures. If everybody gets 4 treasures, I think that's a little... I would have the game... I don't know. I'd have a tighter clock on it.
I didn't feel any pressure in most turns to like get back to Treasure Island because the Kraken was coming so rarely, and I was getting treasures rarely enough that like I was cruising around the ocean with unburied treasure most of the game. If the Kraken came every other turn, what were we saying, like after turn 2 or 3, and it was every other round. Look at me.
Right.
Every other round, and it was a 7-turn game. I think that's what we were saying would be
7-round game, yeah.
7 rounds.
Or
yeah.
even if the Kraken took one of your treasures away from you instead of, well, that's still negative points.
Yeah, or took an
It's either way.
unsecured
Yeah,
treasure,
unsecured
maybe.
one, that's a little more thematic.
That makes sense to me. Taking unsecured
Yeah,
treasure.
unsecured treasure.
And that makes more sense than just the losing a... Yeah, so maybe it takes damage, 1 damage, and then 2 damage, and then 2 damage and an unsecured treasure. Could be what the Kraken does to you. But I think, there are a few other things like, what do you do if you have 4 treasures and you find a 5th one that's better? Can you get rid of one? So there are a few things that kind of need cleaning up, but like I think overall it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was so much fun. And when we were setting up the game, I loved being able to see like what kind of game we were getting into, like as we were setting it up, and having that anticipation. And I think you guys on your cards and in your rule book have so much room for like really fun, spunky pirate words. Call around a day. Called deleting. Raiding. You have so much room for just a real piratey experience.
Arr.
And I think it's going to be.
I think you did have some good. I think you did have some good ones in there already with like mutiny,
yeah, you
and a
already
lot of the
have
stuff
it,
was
which-
really good.
yeah. Yeah.
In there too, and I think there's, like you're saying, there's definitely room for more. There's a lot of fun there, but yeah.
Yeah, room for more like pirate jargon that like the board and the cards interact in such a way that it's clear. You could have it be all pirate words and still have them be understandable.
So, yeah.
But yeah, we really enjoyed your game, you guys. We are the Gamesmiths. Thanks for sending it to us, and we'll see you later.